Hello everyone, my name is Bridget Holcomb. I am with the Women Food and Agriculture Network, and I am so happy to be here with you today for the National Farmers Union Growing for the Future conference. I am a big fan of National Farmers Union. I am especially a big fan of all of you women at the National Farmers Union. I've had a chance to meet so many of you, and you are doing such great work. You kick butt. Thank you, and great to be here with all of you today. So my goal for this session is this. We are all involved in multiple organizations. Farm businesses or other businesses, nonprofits, maybe we serve on a board, maybe we volunteer. We're involved in so many organizations, and these organizations are doing really good work. We are really doing needed work in our communities. I want us to be as effective as we possibly can be within our organizations. So I've had lots of bad experiences working within organizations. I feel we all have. I feel we could have an entire conference just swapping stories of terrible things that have happened to us within organizations. And so often it comes down to poor communication within the organization. And so this actually propelled me, my bad experiences propelled me to become a management nerd. I went to grad school to focus on nonprofit management because I wanted to figure this out. I wanted to figure out how can we as organizations be as effective as possible so that our work is as effective as possible. And when I went into studying this, I was expecting communications to be this really complicated piece. People are difficult and communication is always difficult, so here are all the things that you need to think of. So I was really surprised when I found out that communication, not only within nonprofits, within all types of organization, is very well studied, and there are fairly straightforward best practices for communication. Now, I didn't say simple, but I did say straightforward. And I think that if all of us put these best practices into place, we would see all of our work go that much farther. So there are two communications practices that I wish all of us would implement, and I'm going to share those two with you today. So the first one is doing one-on-one meetings, and the second is giving negative feedback effectively. So if you only have the time, the capacity, the first step to do one good communications tool, one improvement to your communications, let it be one-on-one meetings. Now, one-on-one meetings are not this nebulous, just, everyone that you work with, go and meet with them one-on-one, stop by, have a chat. They're actually very structured, and I'm going to go over that structure. First, I just want to say that I'm using some terms like organization, that means, fit it to your circumstance. And I'm also going to use the terms manager and direct reports. So those are also blanket terms that you can use to any situation. A manager is anyone who oversees somebody else, supervises somebody else. At the Women Food and Agriculture Network, I have 6 people who I supervise. And those 6 people also directly report to me, which means whenever they have a question or whenever they complete something, I'm the one that they report to directly. So they're my direct reports, I'm the manager, and also I have a board at Women Food and Agriculture Network, and I consider my board chair as my manager, and I report directly to her once a week. So with my board chair and with all of the people that work for Women, Food, and Agriculture Network, I implement weekly one-on-one meetings. So first, it is weekly, and it's recommended that you find one time that works for the two of you and put it on your calendar so that you know every Tuesday at 4 p.m. you will be talking to so-and-so. That's not possible with everybody, but if you can do it, do it. And I can already hear some of you thinking, oh my goodness, weekly half-an-hour check-ins and all the people that I would have to have check-ins with, I cannot spare the time. I hold on to that thought. I will address that. But first I want to talk a little bit about what the structure of this one-on-one meeting is. Now, first of all, you sit down in this one-on-one meeting. You know you have a half an hour to talk. And whoever the manager is, if it's you in this situation, the first thing that you do is say nothing. And this is very important, that for the first 15 minutes, the manager doesn't talk. And that is for a couple of reasons. The first being, the direct reports tend to follow along with whatever the manager sets out. So if the manager sat down and immediately got to work, well then the direct report is immediately going to talk about work as well. But what the direct report might need to talk about is how her cat died that week. And if she needs to talk about that for 15 minutes, if that's what she needs to get her to a place where she can be really effective in her job or in her work, well, that's what she needs to do. And you need to allow her the opportunity to do that, to set the tone. The other reason is that if managers don't talk for those 15 minutes, you know that the direct report gets 15 minutes to talk. And when this was studied, and when it was studied how normal communications go, you have a manager and a direct report sitting down, not in this structure, but just talking. The researchers found out that about 23 minutes of the time the manager was talking, and about 7 minutes of the time the direct report was talking. Now, when the researchers went to those managers and direct reports and asked, how much do you think you talked during that meeting? The direct reports would say, I feel like I only talked for 7 minutes. And the managers would say, oh, I think it was really equal. I think it was 50-50. And this isn't because managers are bad people. It is just because of that dynamic. So to be a good manager is to be aware of that and to make sure that your direct reports have a chunk of time that they get to talk to you about whatever they want, and that you are listening. So normally when I go into the one-on-one meetings, I say hello to the person. I don't go in silent, but then I usually start with something like, okay, what do you want me to know? And then I shut up for 15 minutes at least. And it's wonderful because I also get to experience the flip side of it. When I have a weekly check-in with the chair of my board every week, I know that when I call her, I'm going to get 15 minutes to talk about whatever I want to talk about. How annoying this grant application that I'm writing is, how I'm completely behind on my emails, whatever is bothering me this week. I get a chance to tell her all about it, and I know she's listening, and it feels wonderful. And then after that, I feel like, okay, I'm ready to move on. I got that off my chest. Somebody listened to me. Let's talk about what else we need to talk about. It makes me more effective, and I also see how it makes my direct reports more effective. your direct report talks for about 15 minutes. Now, the next thing that you do when your direct report is done talking is you say, okay, is there anything else? And there almost always is. And so let your direct report then say whatever else she has to say. Then ask again. Okay, do you have anything else? Repeat until you hear, I'm good, I'm done. Only then should managers jump in and say, okay, so, and go down the list of things that she brought up that you want to go back to, and then anything else that you want to talk about. End it in a half an hour, and do it once a week. Okay, so I hear a lot of you already thinking about reasons that this won't work for you. So I want to address some of the most common ones. The first is what I talked about a little bit earlier, the idea of I do not have time to do this. It's actually part of the training that I did to expect this answer. So when I implemented this, I found out not only did I found out that yes, I was dedicating a chunk of my time talking to my direct reports and my manager, but I found that the interruptions during the day, the phone calls, the emails, the people stopping me and say, hey, I have a question for you, those all decreased for a couple of reasons. One is because they knew, oh, I do have a time on the calendar that I'm going to talk to her. I can wait until then. And the other reason is often those things that they put on lists of, oh, I will talk to her about it then, get resolved. So I don't get, I will get interruptions when things are really important, but those little interruptions during the day go down. And so overall, my time probably comes out ahead. I'm probably saving time by implementing these one-on-one half an hour check-ins. The other thing that I hear you thinking is that this wouldn't work for my situation. I wouldn't be able to talk the people that I work with into this. So what is suggested and what I actually used when I started with the Women, Food, and Agriculture Network was I put out there, I want to do one-on-one half an hour check-ins every week with all of you. And I heard every reason there was for why we shouldn't do this. It wasn't a good use of my time. It wasn't a good use of their time. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to contact me in between. They were afraid that I wouldn't contact them in between. They were afraid that a half an hour was too much, not enough. And what I said to all of them was, okay, let's try this for 6 weeks. I really need this for 6 weeks. I use the excuse that I was just stepping into the position and I really needed it. You can use whatever excuse you want. It's a really crazy time for you, or it's a really slow time for you, or whatever you want to come up with. Ask everyone to try it for 6 weeks. And at 6 weeks, I told all my direct reports and my manager, if this doesn't work, we'll come back to this in 6 weeks and we'll figure out something else to do. If I would have come back to any of them within 3 weeks and told them that we were getting rid of this, I would have had mutiny. You need to get people over the hump of and get them into the swing of things and realizing that this is a great communications tool, and then they won't let it go. I've had some staff members actually ask for check-ins while they're on vacation just because they want to be able to maintain that communication. I said no, by the way, but just as an example of how much you will come to love these one-on-one check-ins if you implement them. The last thing I believe that I want to address about these one-on-one check-ins is that I know it can be very difficult. I feel like it's especially difficult for us women to really be hard-nosed timekeepers. And we often, when we have somebody who's on a roll, we don't want to cut them off and say like, oh, your 15 minutes is up. So a couple things here. One is, first of all, go into this saying half-hour check-ins, first 15 minutes is for direct report, last 15 minutes is for manager. Another thing you can do is, especially in the beginning when you first implement one-on-one meetings, there might be a backlog of information that your direct report wants to, has a lot to tell you. So what you can do is at 15 minutes say, okay, I just want to point out that we're at 15 minutes, keep going, but I just want you to know if it goes to 20, 25, whatever, keep saying that. And if it gets to 29 minutes, say, okay, I think we have to end and either schedule another meeting or say that you'll pick up at the next, at your next weekly check-in. Eventually, you should find that it goes to more 15-15 as it becomes part of your routine and as you get as you get caught up, and that's what I find with my check-ins. Sometimes things do come up that are bigger projects and bigger discussions, and you can always say, okay, we need to talk about that. Let's talk about that at a different time and schedule that, because one of the most important things to do to show your direct reports that you respect them is to make sure that that you respect their time and that they know that. So it's good to always start on time and finish on time. One more thing I want to say about these is that I bet some of you are thinking, but I'm not in an office building with all of my direct reports or my manager. That's okay. You can do this over the phone too. It's good to do them in person as much as possible so that the person sitting across from you can see like eye contact, I'm listening to you, I'm incorporating everything that you say. But I do most of my weekly check-ins by phone just because I need to. Totally works, you can do it. Okay, so I said if there was one communications tool that you can implement, it is that. It is implementing weekly one-on-one check-ins. If you have the capacity to do two, the second one that I think is essential for healthy organizations is the ability to give negative feedback effectively. This is another one of those areas that I feel like we could all get together and share examples of how people have done this horribly. And again, an area that I was amazed to find out when I started studying management and communications, there's actually a set of 4 steps of how to do this effectively. So I'm going to give these to you now. And I first want to say that I found this especially useful as a woman. I feel like for us women, it is more difficult to give negative feedback, and part of that is because we have this fear of coming across as bossy, for lack of a better word, and so this was really helpful to me in how to give negative feedback it effectively, so not only the person hears it, but also the person sees that this isn't about me. So here are the 4 steps. Step 1, ask, can I give you some feedback? This is important because the person that you're giving negative feedback to might say no. And that is usually not a hard no, you can never give me feedback, go away. Usually it's, if the person says no, it's because she is in the middle of something, or she just had a really rough phone call, or whatever reason. So if she says no, say, okay, when would be a good time? But most of the time, you're going to get yes. And also, I hope it goes without saying that if you're giving somebody negative feedback, make sure to do it when it's just the 2 of you. It should be in private. It shouldn't, even if you are among strangers, if you're on a city bus, not a great place to give negative feedback. Make sure that you're doing it in a private space. Okay, so step 1, can I give you some feedback? Wait for the answer of yes. Step 2 is name the behavior. And this is important because if you name the behavior, say you have been late to meetings, that is talking about something specific about a person that they can change, instead of attacking them personally. You're lazy. So you make sure to very specifically identify the behavior that you want changed. So, step 1, can I give you some feedback? Wait for the yes. Step 2, identify the behavior you want changed. You're showing up late to meetings. Step 3, say what the outcome of this is. We're having to, our meetings are going longer because we're having to catch you up. And again, this is to focus on the outcome of the behavior. This is what the effect is on the organization, not I'm getting really sick of it. This isn't about me or my personality. This isn't about you or your personality. This is about a specific behavior. So, first step, can I give you some feedback? Wait for the yes. Second step, identify the behavior you want changed. Third step, identify the outcome. And then the 4th and final step is say what you want to happen differently. I really need you to show up to meetings on time. Again, about the behavior, I need you to show up to meetings on time, and not about the person, I need you to be less lazy. Then there is a silent 5th step that I did not learn. This is something that I have learned through doing. The silent 5th step is then shut up, because I bet that the person that you're giving negative feedback to has something to say. And it might be defensive. It might be, there's a reason that I'm doing this, or this week is, or whatever. At this point, you don't need to say anything. You've given your feedback. You've let the person know what the outcomes are. You have let the person know what you want her behavior to be. So at this point, you don't need to get into an argument. And in fact, you don't even need to get into problem solving with that person. You have said what you needed to say. Listen to her in any sort of response that she wants to give. Often at that time, the person is working through what she has heard. And then just say thanks and walk away. And the reasons that I love this set of steps is that for many reasons. First of all, when somebody hears me say, can I give you some feedback? They know I'm about to give you some criticism. And it allows that person to, either prepare for it or push it off until, tell me tomorrow when hopefully I'm having a better day or whatever. but also it really helps me focus in on, what is the behavior here. So this process keeps me away from personal judgment, and also it helps the other person hopefully recognize, if I do this well, that I'm not attacking them. Let's talk about this behavior. Something else that I love about this is I love it when people use this process to give me negative feedback. As my mother says, you got people, you got problems. So if you have a group of people working together, if you have two people working together, you are going to have to give each other negative feedback. I really appreciate when somebody spends a moment to think through, okay, how am I going to give this person negative feedback? How am I going to give Bridget negative feedback? So that I am best able to hear it, and I have also been given the tools within to know how I need to change my behavior to do it better. And I know that it's not going to be a personal attack on me. So I hear a lot of you thinking, that makes perfect sense. I don't know if I can implement it. That sounds a little uncomfortable and kind of awkward. And to that I say, yeah, it is. The first time I used this process to give somebody negative feedback, I was nervous. I was terribly nervous, and then after it was done, I was so happy that she took it well and that she responded well and that I did it and I stuck to it, that I like hung up the phone and did a little dance. So yes, I don't mean to make this out to be like, you just do these 4 steps and then everything is fine. It is a little awkward. It's worth it. It is absolutely worth it. The other recommendation that I learned when studying this is that if you think you're going to have trouble implementing this, start by just using this as for positive feedback. So, for instance, you could ask them, can I give you some feedback? And I have heard some people say that they use, can I give you some feedback, whether it's going to be positive or negative. And that might work for you. For me, if it's positive feedback, I just give it. And I also don't worry about who else is in the room. I'm happy to give positive feedback in front of other people. So, but I do, for step 2, I identify the behavior. Your writing for our blog gets to our values and is fun to read. And then I go to step 3, the outcome. I'm hearing people say that they love reading the blog, or I just feel that we're doing a better job getting our message out there, or whatever that might be. And then I move to step 4, which is the behavior that I want to see. Keep it up. And after you use this for a couple of weeks for giving positive feedback, then it should be a little bit more comfortable for you to then transition to giving effective negative feedback. So, to recap, I want all of us to be super, super effective in all of our work. And that means that within all of our organizations, our farm businesses, our nonprofits, our volunteer positions, other businesses, whatever, I want us to be super effective. I want our work to go as far as it can. That means that communication within your organization is essential, that it is good, and hopefully it's as good as it can be. The 2 communications tools that I think are the most effective and that I have implemented and can absolutely vouch for are one, one-on-one weekly check-ins, and two, giving negative feedback effectively. If you can only start with one, start with the one-on-one check-ins and then add giving negative feedback effectively as you can. Best of luck to all of you. I hope you are able to continue all of the fantastic work that you're doing. And once again, it's wonderful to be a part of this conference and wonderful for Women Food and Agriculture Network to support the great work of National Farmers Union. Thanks.